Hey, what's up guys? It's Luke, Black Sheep 217 on Pokemon the Trading Card Game online and at Zoom Battle Gym on Facebook. Check me out on both those places. I'd love to be your friend and get to know you there. Hey, today we are talking about one of the best decks you can play in the theme deck format, and it's Relentless Flame. It seems like all of these fire-based decks are a step above everybody else. Like I did the other Charizard deck, I tried the Entei deck, and those are excellent decks. Relentless Flame is a little bit of an older deck. It's like the OG deck, but it is super powerful and still really relevant in the theme deck format today. A lot of newer decks than Relentless Flame, but Relentless Flame is a deck that just wins. It is a really straightforward, simple deck that I think anybody could really get into and have a ton of fun with, especially for the newer players who I think don't want to get it too complicated. For example, in the game, this would be a really great deck to start off with. My last review, we did the Dragonite deck, and if you want to check that out, it's going to be above. I'm going to leave a link there. The Dragonite deck is great, but I don't think it's that straightforward. You really have to know the deck back and forth to do a really good job with it. This deck, Relentless Flame, you can, if you have a good working knowledge of the game, you can just pick it up and you can go to town. It's like a very simple deck. And so I'm going to explain sort of the positives. I'm going to go through all of the Pokemon in this deck, trainers, some weaknesses, and the strengths, of course, of this deck. Check out the times below if you want to go to a specific section. But first, of course, as always, we're going to start with the Pokemon in the deck. I'm going to go over the best Pokemon, the good Pokemon, the decent Pokemon, Pokemon that are only good in certain situations, and then, of course, some of the worst Pokemon in the deck. And really, there's hardly any terrible Pokemon. I would say there's maybe just one that I think isn't that good, but trust me, this Pokemon is necessary in this deck. So we'll go through those first. So what I'd like to do is we'll go right over to Pokemon the Trading Card Game online and take a look at each card individually. Okay, so we're actually just going to start with the star of this deck. It's Charizard. Charizard is the best Pokemon in this deck, and of course, for good measure, Charizard is a fan favorite. People love Charizard. You get 2 Charizards when you buy this deck if you purchase it physically. Great. If you want a Charizard card, this is a great way to grab a Charizard card. Anyways, Charizard's a stage 2 with 150 HP. Now, what it has is, it has Roaring Resolve. And this is a really good ability. So, it says once during your turn before you attack, you may put 2 damage counters on this Pokemon. And if you do, search your deck for up to 2 energy cards, fire energy, and put them on the Pokemon. So, his attack, Continuous Blaze Ball, only takes 2 fire energy. So, his ability allows you to just grab 2 energy that you need and put it on to Charizard for only 2 damage. So what I'm saying is, he doesn't have to have any energy on him to attack. He can just attack. That is amazing. You don't have to power him up over multiple turns. He can just be ready right when you need him and right when he evolves into Charizard. So that is an amazing ability. And if you look at Continuous Blaze Ball, it does 30 plus however much fire energy you discard off of Charizard. Now you need to have 2 for this attack to work, so the minimum damage he does is 130 damage. That's great! And if you have an energy on Charizard already, that's 180 damage. That's gonna blow away just about every Pokemon in the theme deck format. So, incredible card. This is a game winner for you, Charizard. If you have him out, he's hard to take down. Now, you do have to watch out for the weakness though. Charizard is weak to water, and there are some Pokemon that can just one-shot him. Even Pokemon you wouldn't even expect to be able to one-shot Charizard, they can do that. So that would be the one thing I would say you gotta look out for, and we'll discuss that in weaknesses a little later. The next Pokemon I'd like to talk about is Farfetch'd. Farfetch'd also makes the top list, the good list. Farfetch'd has an ability to just draw 2 cards as an attack. It's called Collect, and you can see it there. Draw 2 cards. Really simple, but you have 3 Farfetch'd in your deck, and so you should be able to draw them out, and hopefully Farfetch'd can start as your active Pokemon to just draw and draw and draw as much as you can, because you're going to need to draw. This card will help you draw what you need. Plus, Farfetch'd starts with a pretty decent 80 hit points. So he's a little bit stronger than a lot of the other just regular basic Pokemon. He also just retreats for 1 energy. So if you need to get him out of there, it's possible. Now, Farfetch'd also has the Tool Buster, and it's actually a really cool ability. Before doing damage, discard all Pokemon Tool cards from your opponent's active Pokemon. That's awesome! And then the attack does 70 more damage, so it's a 1 colorless energy attack that can do up to 90 damage. Now, the only thing that I would say isn't that great about Farfetch'd and his Tool Buster is you don't really see a lot of tools in Theme Deck format. You see a lot of tools in Standard, but not really so much in Theme. So the Tool Buster attack is not something you'll really use very much, but just for the Collect attack alone, this is a great Pokemon for this deck. Okay, so breaking news, Charizard is not the most powerful in terms of HP Pokemon in this deck. That honor goes to Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen has 160 hit points, so 10 more than Charizard does. Again, another Stage 2 Pokemon with Queen's Call. Now, I wish we could access Queen's Call before we actually had to get up to Stage 2, because Stage 2 can be difficult to reach. But if you do get Nidoqueen out, she can just call out Pokemon from your deck. You don't need to look for them. You don't need like a Pokemon fan club or anything like that. It's an ability, so it doesn't even take up your attack. You can just get Pokemon from your deck, put it into your hand, whoever you want, as long as they're not GX or EX. But you know what? This is Theme Deck format. We don't see GX or EX right now, so that's not even a worry. The other attack that Nidoqueen has is the Power Lariat. Now, it's pretty weak if Nidoqueen's by herself, because it does 10 damage for 3 colorless energy, and that is terrible. But if you happen to have evolved Pokemon on your bench, it does 50 damage for each of those that are evolved. So if you have 2 evolved, it's 110. 3 would be 160 damage, so you can see how that can ramp up. You just gotta make sure you have evolved Pokemon on your bench. So the attack is, I guess, situational, but Nidoqueen is great because if Charizard gets taken down, there are ways to get him back into your deck and then pulled out again with Nidoqueen. Rapidash. So Rapidash is one of my personal greatest foes, because every time I have to face Rapidash, Rapidash does tons of damage to me, and I can do like nothing to Rapidash. There was a time where I went turn after turn after turn and did 0 damage against Rapidash. Why? Because of the agility attack. This attack does 60 damage, which is really nice for 2 energy in and of itself. But you also get to flip a coin, and if it's heads, then Rapidash takes no damage during your opponent's turn. I've had opponents just flip heads against me, and I just sit there staring at Rapidash. He's knocking out all my Pokemon for 60 damage a pop. I can't do a thing about it. Plus, when I can hit Rapidash, oftentimes I can't even knock him out because he's got 100 HP. And then he just flips again and gets the heads. It's so frustrating. And you know what Rapidash does to me? I always flip tails whenever I play Rapidash, so I have a love-hate relationship with Rapidash. I acknowledge how good Rapidash can be. It's just sometimes he doesn't like to work for me. But Rapidash is a really good Pokemon, and I've seen the damage Rapidash can do. Rapidash also has Searing Flame, which deals 20 damage and burns the opponent. Solid. Really solid. So Rapidash, definitely one of the top Pokemon. I think second only to Charizard in this deck. Okay, the next tier down from the good Pokemon are just the decent Pokemon, and Charmander lands square in this decent category. As a starting Pokemon, if that's all you had in your hand was Charmander to start the game, I wouldn't sweat it because he starts off with a base 70 hit points. That's really good. You know, a lot of times you have Pokemon with even 30 hit points. I would say 60 is sort of your normal starter in Theme Deck. Charmander has 70. That's really nice. He also has an attack that takes only 1 energy to deal 30 damage. That's really good too. The one thing that kind of holds Charmander back, and I guess this has to be done to sort of balance the gameplay, if you use Ember, you have to discard an energy from Charmander. So, you know, he loses the energy. And that just makes it so that you have to really think when you're using Charmander, like, use the Ember attack very strategically. Sometimes it's really good to just, if it's the beginning of the game and you feel like the other person's struggling with energy and you have lots of energy, Ember away, you could win really quickly. But otherwise, you might want to hold off from Charmander attacking if you don't want to just burn off energy all the time. And of course, Charmander evolves into Charmeleon. And Charmeleon, he's a very average Pokemon. He has 90 HP, so it's just like decent for stage 1. I mean, you have basic Pokemon that are better than that. Then we have Fire Fang, which does 30 for only 2 and burns your opponent. But I just don't see Charmeleon being used that often. You know, it takes 2 fire energy to do the Fire Fang, and you know, Charizard, when you eventually evolve Charmeleon into Charizard, Charizard doesn't really need to have energy because he can just scoop it up himself from the deck using his special ability. So I often don't have Charmeleon powered up, but I guess in a pinch, he might be useful, but he's not so great that he stands alone. You know, it's best to just evolve Charmeleon right into Charizard as quickly as you can. The next Pokemon in the decent, and the final Pokemon in the decent, is Ponyta. Ponyta is a decent Pokemon through and through. 70 hit points for a basic Pokemon is nice. The live Coal attack for 10 damage for 1 fire energy is pretty mediocre. But the Stomp has a cost of 2 fire energy and could possibly do 40 damage. So that's really good, but I guess half the time it's only going to do 10 damage. So not that great. I would say Ponyta is just, like I said, run-of-the-mill average. Oftentimes I'm using Ponyta to block if I'm trying to power up or evolve up into Charizard. So Ponyta can come in handy in a pinch, can help block for you, but not that great. I would really be hoping for Rapidash as soon as possible if I had Ponyta. In this deck, we only have one Pokemon that I sort of consider in that situational category, and that's Nidoran. So Nidoran, you actually have 3 of them, so there's a good chance you'll have Nidoran as your starter. And Nidoran has Call for Family. I think that's what Nidoran is good for. Calling for family. But you only get 1 basic Pokemon onto your bench with Call for Family. There are other Pokemon in other decks that actually get more than 1. They get 2. But Nidoran here only gets 1. And if Nidoran's the only one you have in your hand, you kind of accept that, and it's okay, because he can actually get you other Pokemon. The only problem with him is sort of your basic 60 hit point Pokemon. And his attack, he has a Scratch, takes 2 colorless to do 20 damage. It's just very, very average. So I end up not really ever using Nidoran for much, but you do need Nidoran because you want to evolve into Nidoqueen. so you kind of have to have it. The same can be said of Nidorina. Except Nidorina I have in the lame category. I think Nidorina, a lot of these Stage 1 Pokemon in these theme decks, I just feel are not that great. So Nidorina has Family Rescue, which allows you to shuffle 5 Psychic Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck. So I guess if you have Nidoran or Nidoqueen or another Nidorina in your discard, then you could use Family Rescue to like put them back in the deck. That just doesn't seem that useful to me. It would be great if you could shuffle any of your Pokemon, like your fire Pokemon that you really love in this deck. That's not the case. So Family Rescue is not very good in this deck. And Bite, again, 2 energy for 30 damage. It's better than what Nidoran had, but not great by a long shot. And whenever I have Nidorina out, I'm just praying to get Nidoqueen out as quickly as possible, because I don't really want to do anything with Nidorina. Okay, we're moving on to the trainer cards, and I have that same tiering system almost for trainers, except you know what? There are no lower tiers in terms of trainers in this deck. All the trainer cards are good. Although there's one, and I'll point it out, that makes this deck a little bit more unique, and you don't see it in other decks really. So our first trainer is the Nest Ball, and this lets you search your deck for a basic Pokemon, put it onto your bench. Very typical card. It's a really good item. It just helps you get Pokemon onto your bench. So you're looking for Charmander if you need Charmander if you don't have him out. If you need Nidorina, who is it? If you need Nidoran out, you can call Nidoran out. There are all these Pokemon that you can get out that you need. Nest Ball is just a great way to do that. Switch is important in every single deck, so of course it's here. The Timer Ball is great. It's better than Nest Ball because you can get evolution Pokemon. And so, you know, if you're looking for Charizard, Nidoqueen, this is the way to do it. The only thing is you have to flip 2 coins, and the only way you can get those Pokemon is if you get heads. So oftentimes you get one of the 2 to flip heads, but sometimes you get none, and that's really disappointing. I guess if anything, Timer Ball could be in the mid-tier, because you have a real good chance, not a real good chance, but you have a chance of getting nothing if you flip a Timer Ball. Okay, here's the big one, Brock's Grit. Shuffle 6 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. So, you know, this deck, you are losing fire energy a lot because the Pokemon, namely Charizard, discards the energy that he uses to attack. So what happens if you run out of energy? Well, Brock's Grit saves you from that. There's 2 of them in this deck. So if you do find that you're running out of fire energy or you've run out, if you have Brock's Grit, this is the card that I see in this deck and not really many others. Really haven't run across it in like other decks that are theme decks. This is great to get those cards back so that you can have what you need and Charizard can resolve again and get that energy to attack. Yeah, Copycat, great card. Cynthia, again, really good. Shuffling your hand into your deck and drawing 6, sort of to refresh your hand, always a great card. How to just draw 3 cards. Again, drawing cards is so important. Pokemon Fan Club, again, really good card. This time you get 2 basic Pokemon, whereas some of the other cards only get you 1. So if you need more, Pokemon Fan Club is definitely really nice. Professor Kukui, another card that lets you draw and adds 20 damage to your attack. Pretty sweet. So I think Professor Kukui, excellent, a great way to like surprise an opponent if they're not expecting you to knock them out. Maybe you can with that 20 extra damage from the Professor here. So let's move on to wishes I have for this deck. There's not a whole lot really. This deck is really, really good. It's an excellent deck. So I'm not wishing for a whole lot here with this deck, but one of the things, I guess, that could be better is our friend Charizard. He's great enough already, but with 150 hit points, he can be knocked out, even by a Pokemon like Golduck. If I'm playing a water deck and I have Golduck in it, Golduck can hit for 80. Since Charizard is weak to water, that 80 becomes 160, and goodbye Charizard with Golduck. Kinda embarrassing. But that's what can happen. Golduck can one-shot the Charizard in this deck. In the new Charizard theme deck from Vivid Voltage, that doesn't happen. Now, Golduck will bring Charizard to almost a knockout, but that Charizard has, I believe, 170 hit points. So Golduck cannot do that to that particular Charizard. But this particular Charizard is a little bit less powered than the other one. And so, it's a slight wish, and honestly, I think if this Charizard would be even harder to knock out, this deck would be even more powerful, and so that might be just way too unbalanced. But if I'm strictly speaking about this deck and what I wished this Charizard was as strong in HP as the other one. Okay, let's talk about 3 quick strategies. If you're picking this deck up for the first time, of course, your main goal is to get Charizard onto the active spot, dealing damage. Don't be afraid to switch him out or retreat him. He only takes 2 to retreat if you feel like they're about to do something that could really hurt Charizard, because you want him to just keep dealing damage. And the unfortunate thing, he does take some damage when he acquires more energy through the draw deck. So what you need to do is just be mindful of Charizard. Get him out, use your, Pokemon fan clubs, use Farfetch'd, their ability to draw cards, get Charizard into your hand and get him into the field of play. That's what this deck is built around. The second strategy to employ is to use Rapidash. You're going to want Rapidash, I would say even above Nidoqueen, because Rapidash can be a major staller for you. Rapidash will stall the game and quite possibly, while stalling, knock out some of your opponent's Pokemon. Rapidash with the agility ability, or attack I should say, really, that is such a strong attack in the theme deck format. It has driven me nuts on many occasions, and I think you can use it to really good effect. My third tip is, whenever Charizard discards energy, you're going to want to sort of keep a Brock's Grit. I talked about Brock's Grit with the trainers during the trainer section, but do not discount Brock's Grit, because that card literally gets the energy you need to use to attack right back into your deck, and it can be a game changer. So hold on to Brock's Grit till you need it. If you're running out of energy, throw it out there and your opponent's just going to be like, no, because this deck does a great job of getting energy, and there's 20 energies in this deck, so this deck has tons of energy in it. Get that energy out, put it back when you need it. So manage your energy well. This deck sort of makes it easy for you to do that, but I don't want you to forget about it, so keep that in mind. And here's a bonus little strategy. If you're playing against like a grass deck or something like that, grass is obviously weak to fire. Try to get that quick knockout. You can even win on that first turn if you have a Charmander out, and you can get that Ember attack off where you discard the energy to do what would be 60 at that point. Do that, and your game could be over in a snap. Okay, so welcome to the strengths section. What are the strengths of this deck? And you've heard it if you've been watching this review all along. It's Charizard and his ability to attack without even needing to have energy on him initially. That alone is so good. I mean, Pokemon is really about, resource management and getting the resources to the Pokemon so that they can use their abilities. Well, Charizard can do that without a sweat because he has an ability built in that gets him energy. That is such a good ability, and I would use that all day long. It is a strength of this deck, and so you gotta use your strengths. So use it up. Don't even worry about the 20 damage. I never even think about it. I just do it. The only time I think about it is if there's tons of damage on Charizard already. You just don't want to knock him out while doing that. This deck also has a really good way of drawing cards. There's a lot of good drawing mechanics. I wouldn't say this deck is as good as the new Charizard deck in terms of drawing. That deck can actually draw a little bit too fast, where you end up drawing out. This one's not as fast as that, but it's still plenty quick, and there's plenty of cards in this deck that let you get more cards out of your deck. So use those cards wisely and use them often. Don't hold on to them. Play as many cards as you can each turn. And that's really for any Pokemon game that you play, but this deck, that's something you definitely want to do. And looking through this deck, another point is a lot of the Pokemon, their attacks are pretty cheap in terms of energy cost. The Power Lariat on Nidoqueen is the only attack that costs like 3 energy to pull off. So every other attack is just 2 energy. So the attack cost in this deck is actually not too bad. A lot of the other decks, I'm thinking of decks that I like to play, like the Galarian Surfetch deck. There are Pokemon on there that you need like 4 energy to power up. That's insane. You're sitting there forever and you're gonna get knocked out. This deck, you can start softening up your enemies by fighting quicker. That's a really big advantage for this deck. So the low energy cost of the attacks, that is a great strength. And one final little note, this deck is very simple, like I mentioned, it's straightforward. So it's a deck that you can pick up easily, play, and really honestly win with at the beginning. So I would definitely do that. The strength of this deck is its ease of use. The person whoever came up with this deck, they did a marvelous job making it so that whoever plays this deck can just go right through and win. And you know what? Even if you don't win, at least you're playing the deck the way I think it's supposed to be played. It's very easy to play this deck the way it's supposed to be played. Let's now talk about the weaknesses of this deck. The obvious weakness, and this is the natural weakness, water. I mean, fire is weak to water, because water can put fire out. And I mentioned before, Pokemon like Golduck, Empoleon's initial attack in the Unseen Depths deck, they just take out Pokemon like Charmander. They just wipe them out. So water Pokemon are going to be a huge threat and a huge danger whenever you play this deck. So really be on the lookout for water decks. Another weakness is this deck is played a lot. So people have tons and tons of experience playing this deck. They know what you're going to do. They know what the strategies are. So you have to really be able to outwit them on that level. They are going to have strategies to try to take Charizard out. Charizard has a huge sort of target on his back. So it is a weakness. Even though it's a great deck, it's there so much, it's played so much, that people are used to this deck and have found ways, probably their own ways, to deal with this deck and possibly defeat it. And lastly, another weakness, and I kind of mentioned this attack before, is Nidoqueen's Power Lariat. I think it sounds like a great attack, and I think it can attack for a lot if you have a really healthy group of Pokemon on your bench that are evolved, but that's what they need to be, evolved. If you wait to use Power Lariat as sort of your final attack, after you've sent out all the troops, not a good idea. You want to use Power Lariat when it's the strongest. So if you have evolved Pokemon on your bench, put Nidoqueen out there to deal more damage, because the weaker your bench gets, the less Pokemon you have on your bench, the weaker Power Lariat's going to be. So if you let Nidoqueen go last and everyone else is knocked out, Nidoqueen's going to do a paltry 10 damage, and that's not going to cut it. Nidoqueen's going to be out of there pretty quick. So just be mindful of the Power Lariat. It can be strong, but it can be extremely week. So overall, I would say Relentless Flame is a really, really good deck to use in the theme deck format. As I mentioned, it is as straightforward as they come. It's as powerful as they come. It is a really strong deck. Rapidash, really, really good. Of course, Charizard, Nidoqueen, really good Pokemon. And I think you'll have a lot of fun with this deck. If you're a newer player, I wouldn't hesitate to get this deck. You know, some people don't like to play the decks that, you know, other people are playing. They want to be unique. But it's worth it to play this deck because you get to know this deck and you know what can possibly defeat it since you've been playing it so often. And it's a great way to sort of get to know the Pokemon mechanics as well. So I highly recommend this deck, especially if you're a new player. And if you're not, it's a really fun deck to play and to win with as well. So what's the grade for this deck? It has to be an A. Of course, right? It had to be an A. This deck is so good, really good. They really broke the mold with this deck, right? So, you know, a lot of decks, like I said at the beginning of this video, have come out since Relentless Flame, and not many are better than it. You know, the other Charizard deck, I think in this deck they stand toe-to-toe. I would say the Dragonite deck is still a little bit better. And of course, the water decks can give this deck a difficult time. But all in all, it's a fun deck, and it's a must-have if you're playing online. I would, you know, spend my 500 Pokecoins online to grab this deck. It's something you should be playing and trying out. Let me know what you thought of this review. Hopefully it helped you out if you're starting to get into Pokemon the Trading Card Game online. It's a ton of fun. I really appreciate you watching this video, and I will see you next time.